I'll have a client and it's like, oh, we're 10 million. And I'll look at their brand and I'm like, wow, you're 10 million with that? Like, imagine what we can do once we really fix this branding.
Welcome to In the Den. I have Dan Antonelli, the brand man from KickCharge, about ready to release a new book. Brand it, not bland it. That's correct. Brand it, not bland it. KickCharge your home services brand. Dan, thank you so much for being on the Den. We've been friends for about 10 years now, doing business together. Thank you so much, brother. How you doing, man?
Good, man. It's good to be here. It's always great seeing everything that's going on here. It's just always inspiring to be in this environment. So yeah, it's 10 years, I think. I remember when we first met with you, we were renaming our agency, and we had changed the name of our company, and then we were freaking out about our SEO and what would happen to our old website, and you guys were like, oh no, everything's gonna be fine, and it was fine. So rebranding ourselves and renaming ourselves was probably one of the smartest things I've done, having done it for a few thousand other businesses over my career. It was nice to finally do it for myself and sort of live the talk and get it done. So anyway, all good stuff.
I mean, what's interesting is after 10 years, right, you were in my old office, I was in your old office, I saw your building get built. I almost like we're two kids that grew up together in this industry. We see a lot of people come and go, right? And we've been to shows together, we spoke together, Talk to me about KickCharge. First, before that, talk to me about the book. This is your second book. I got to read the book. Amazing book. If you get a chance to read it, it's actually one of the best books you ever read about branding. So kudos to you. Tell me about the book and why you wrote the book.
My previous book I published in 2013. It was called Building a Big Small Business Brand, and that really dealt with basically how small businesses can leverage a brand and help them grow their company. And since that time, we really started working almost exclusively with home service businesses. And so I keep seeing sort of the same mistakes that a lot of home service companies make. And, I want to try to help as many people as I possibly can. And I was just like, I'd see this stuff and I'm like, I gotta get something out there, so that when I see them post on Facebook, like, hey, what do you think of my awesome new logo? Or what do you think of my truck wrap? And you're just like, oh my God, no, don't do that. I just want to be able to say to people, dude, before you do anything, just read this book. So you understand what it is that you're actually about to embark upon and what you're trying to do. So I basically took the last 10 years worth of experience in branding all these home service companies. I think at this point we've probably branded over 2,000 home service companies over the last 25 years. But I took the last 10 years basically worth of data and assessments and research and what we've learned about doing this, and I basically put it into a book, and I just brain dumped everything I know about the subject into this.
I mean, I'm fortunate because I got a front row seat. We probably work on 100 plus of your accounts.
Yeah.
Right. So we do all digital marketing for them. I've seen you take companies, rebrand them, and they go like this.
Yeah.
And I think some of it's pretty cool. You'll text me. I mean, this is how much he's into branding. He'll text me. Full transparency, I hired you for one of my home service-based companies, and the next two are hiring him as soon as he's done. So Cherry Roofing is going through a new one. We love the logo, by the way, or the little Cherry Man, Kool-Aid Man, whatever you want to call him. But, I think it's amazing that people don't understand the importance. I worry about my personal brand. We talk about it. Lance Bachmann, you know what you get with me, right? It's like when I walk in a room, people, I should have to identify who I am, what I am, and what you should expect out of me. Why do people not see it the same way with their companies? Can you explain that to me? Because it blows my mind.
You want to just say you don't know what you don't know. And I think everyone that goes through the experience of rebranding with us and then comes out on the other side of it, then they understand it so much better, and they realize how much that their current brand has been holding them back, how much they've had to, they have to spend more money on marketing, they have to spend more money on recruitment because they don't even look like a place anyone wants to work at, right? So that's the other part. You see guys post, oh, I can't get anyone to work for me, and then you go look at their branding, you look at their culture, you look at the way their office looks, and yeah, that's why no one wants to work for you. I wouldn't want to work there either. So those are all the things that are holding back so many small businesses, and they just don't really understand the value of what a brand will actually deliver to them. Even just driving here. So I'm driving a couple hours today, and I'm looking at all these truck wraps, and literally like almost every one of them was failing in what it needed to deliver, right? And it's just sad to me. So I see these trucks, and I'm just like, there's $4,000 down the toilet. And they don't know. Like, they think it's working when somebody says, hey, I see your trucks all the time, and that's their signal that they think it's working. But that's only one piece of it. Seeing your van is great. What does it say about your company is the part that 90% of these home service companies miss.
What's the takeaway he means, everyone? Like, what am I taking away from seeing that brand? Seeing that brand is one thing, but you want to take away is a trustworthy company, reliable.
Exactly.
What do you actually do, right? I mean,
like sometimes you don't even know what they do. Like
I see a lot of trucks where I'm like, what do they do? And I got to Google it, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, and people don't realize, what's funny you say that is the expense, right? You call it an expense. Mm-hmm. It's an expense if it's not done correctly. It's an investment if you do it correctly. Like,
exactly.
I didn't think about not paying you. It was a no-brainer for me. It was like we were talking. I was like, Dan, listen, I got another home service-based business I just bought. I got a few more. We were looking to go. I was like, these brands just aren't going to work long-term.
Right.
And we knew that. We were having that conversation. Yep. And I was open to even changing the name. And you actually said, keep this name. So, like, it's not like you're not. People think, I think sometimes you're being mean. Like, I saw you saying to one of my friends, I'm not going to say his name, but I saw you post on his Facebook the other day of, hey, listen, you're asking your pool of people. When I go ask my pool of people what they think of One SEO, I'm going to get raving reviews. It's the people that don't know One SEO, what do they think of it? What's their perception of it?
Exactly.
And that's really what people don't understand. The people that know you already are going to like you and think highly of you.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because in that particular instance, he was asking people that had already experienced using his company or that knew of him personally. And of course, those people are going to say, oh, it was great. It was a great experience. I'm more interested in the people who have no idea who you are, right? Mrs. Jones, she just saw your truck for the first time. She's never heard of you before. Okay, what does she think about the experience that she's going to get if she picks up the phone or goes on your website and invites you to her home? Okay, so she's gonna come to that engagement with bias, right? So inherent bias against contractors, because she hears these horror stories. She knows neighbors that got screwed or ripped off. So she's already worried about who's coming to her home. How do I make Mrs. Jones feel like the person that's going to arrive at home is going to be honest, ethical, going to treat her fairly, will deliver value, and will also be around next year if something goes wrong? Like, if I buy a $20,000 HVAC system for you, I want to make sure that you're going to be around next year to service it, of course, right? So I'll pay more for someone that I believe has those values, has those ethical standards. But I want to use the brand as a mechanism to have her feel something before you even ring the doorbell. Once you ring the doorbell, I know you'll kill it. You'll provide an amazing service. You do all the best practices that you need to once you're inside the home. But I need to make her feel something about that experience. And I keep saying her, right? Because the purchasing decision for most home services is like 70 to 80% being chosen by women. So the brands need to communicate to women, and that's another part of it where you see some brands, like you see like it's a mascot and he's got all muscles and he's like running towards you and he's got like a fucking wrench in his hand. He looks like he's going to beat the shit out of someone. That doesn't make Mrs. Jones feel warm and fuzzy.
Not at all.
So thinking about how the brand appeals to women is also a huge part of developing a strategy that will not only communicate all those things but make her feel at ease about who she's going to hire.
And this is what I try to explain to people. You got to pay for experience, right? A truck wrap guy out there, and this is where, I'm not being rude to him, you go to a truck wrap place, like, oh, I'll design your truck wrap. Mm-hmm. And they're just giving you a graphic designer that might be on Fiverr, whatever it may be. They might have an in-house person, most don't, but let's just say. Yeah. And they're just coming up with what they think's cool that you'll like and putting the key things that you do in there.
Right.
That's not a good brand. It's not what,
right.
Like, you pay for experience. Your method is, because I've been through it now with you with Cherry, which me and you were going back. Full transparency, everyone. We were going back and forth. He's like, you're asking pretty much idiots. I'm like, no, they're not idiots, okay? I'm like, if people are allowed to disagree with you, Dan, right? Like, people have different sites, right? But you were right. They were right. You got to find a happy medium, right? Like, it's just tough. It's just people's perception. But this is what, and this is what I say about, and that's why we went with your brand. And I said, when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, I think you might have, I don't know, give me something the doctor might say. You might have cancer, or you might, your cholesterol might be high. You don't come back to the doctor and say, well, I think this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and at this point, 27 years later, you're a doctor. You've done this now over and over. I mean, this is where, and I said this to my sister Jill when we were driving, and I was giving you kudos, right, about what you've done. About 2 years ago, your daughter painted the whole entire airplane. I think it was for American or United.
United,
right? So, both terrible airlines, by the way, but that's not the point of the conversation. But, I mean, that's how much you empowered and embraced your daughter at the age of 21 or 22, I think she was at the time.
I think she was only 20 at the time, actually, or 19, but yeah.
She's competing with the best around the world, and she was one of, I think, 3, correct me if I'm wrong, that got chosen, and they literally wrapped the whole damn airplane in her design.
Yeah.
I mean,
757. It's pretty cool.
I mean, like, and that's the difference between expert, right?
Yeah.
And non-experts.
Yeah. And I think to your point, though, also you have a lot of owners that really are more interested in what they like. They're like, oh, Dan, I don't like that. And I, like, I'm not trying to be a smartass about that, but I'm like, I don't necessarily really care what you like, because you're not the target demographic that I'm trying to make this brand appeal to. And of course, I want my clients to like their logos. I'm being tongue-in-cheek about that. But that's really an important distinction, is the idea to recognize that although it may not hit on all the things you personally might like, that's okay. That's really actually okay, because as long as it hits on the things that the people that we're trying to buy your services would want to see in a brand, that's more important. And I guarantee you, if they start buying a lot of your services, you're not going to care if you don't really love your logo, because it's going to be making you a ton of money at that point.
Let's talk about the home service-based businesses and why it's so hot, and I think it's going to continue to be hot. You know, I own multiple ones now. I own 5 home service-based companies. I have 2 more under LOI right now. You know, and I got 150 employees out on the floor. I don't need these businesses, but I just feel like the opportunity in these businesses are just so hot right now.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the home service-based industries? Because now you own some too.
Yeah.
You're in them. So can you tell me about it, your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's been proven to be, obviously it was COVID proof. It's pretty much recession proof, right? Because, you know, you're going to be living in a house. It's not like you're not going to need heat. You're not going to need suddenly not worry about air conditioning, et cetera. So it's been a business that I think has attracted a lot of money and investment money, because they see that those businesses are fairly secure, fairly stable, have a pretty much steady source of revenue. But I look at that space too, and I just see, again, so much opportunity. So I see these companies, and you know, I'll have a client and it's like, oh, you know, we're 10 million. And I'll look at their brand and I'm like, wow, you're 10 million with that? Like, imagine what we can do once we really fix this branding. Like, then it's like you torch the thing, right?
Absolutely.
You just friggin' blow it up. And then what I love about that too is, like, you see a lot of guys that are spending way too much money of revenue as a percentage of advertising, right? So they'll say, I need to spend 10% of revenue on advertising. And I have, I mean, countless examples of guys spending less than 5%, less than 4%, and they're growing like crazy. And they're spending much less on marketing because their brands are disruptive, their brands are unique, their brands are memorable, the trucks are working the way that they should be, the truck wraps. So I look at all that stuff as opportunities. So I love seeing guys that are doing well for themselves in spite of a poor brand, because then I know, oh man, we just fixed the branding, and then just this thing gets torched. It's like they just blow up at that point.
You know, here's a question for you, right? As you know, the majority of home service-based businesses are under $1 million. I think less than 3% are over 10 million privately owned, right? So that just shows you. And it seems like we only hang out with, on a daily basis, we're talking to people like Tom Howard, Tom Mel. They have these companies that are massive in the home service industry. Some people think mine is big for some of the size of them, right? And I'm like, they're really nothing compared to some of these private equity firms with you own. What would you say to the small? Because I believe brand is bigger than people. I believe your personal brand and your company brand are just as equally as important. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have a really, and I always say to people, if you're posting politics on your personal page and you own a business, you're just, and some people say to me, I don't care. I don't have to deal with a Republican. I don't have to deal with a Democrat. I'm like, why? Both of them are probably very good people. They just have very different political views.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So, Can you talk to me about why you think the personal brand is as important when you own a business as your brand as a company also? Because in these smaller businesses, a lot of times these operators are the brand and they don't realize it.
Yeah, and you see that again, they kill it with that service, right? Because a lot of them are personally involved. So you see when someone posts on a Facebook community page, like, oh, I need an electrician, and that guy will get tagged all the time. So you see that definitely as being something where, yeah, you maybe want to keep some of the politics off your personal page because it may alienate. And I don't know what point it serves or purpose it serves. Me personally, for my personal Facebook page, I don't ever post anything political. I'll post stuff about what our agency is doing, what I'm doing personally, but I stay out of that arena because I don't, to me, the more you might win a friend, you might lose a friend. It's pointless. Like, so I just stay out of it, and I put my head down. And I'm like, I almost don't give a shit what's going on to a certain extent. Like, I'm just going to be fucking grinding no matter what anyway. So I'm sort of powerless to change a lot of
no doubt
the politics. But to your point before about the smaller guy and saying, well, I'm being outmanned, I'm being outgunned by private equity or bigger firms. I'm only like $1 million in revenue and I'm competing with guys that are $25 million. How do I beat them at that game? And I will say this, when you look at some of the brands that are represented by private equity, a lot of them are really, really poor in terms of brand, right? They have a poor brand. And you might say, well, how do they have a poor brand, Dan? They're $25 million in revenue. Like, well, again, they get very complacent with what they've been doing forever, and so they won't ever change. And you got a lot of numbers guys who look at the numbers and say, oh, well, it's going to be kind of expensive for us to rebrand and rewrap 50 trucks, so let's just keep doing what we're doing. Not realizing that long-term, they'd spend less on marketing if they actually fixed the root of the problem. So again, I love working with the guys that are like $1 million, $2, $3, $4 million, and they show me their top list of competitors, and there's all these big players, and I laugh, and I'm like, these are the guys we're competing against? Awesome, I love it, because we're going to come in there, and we're going to start taking pieces of their world with our brand, while they're sitting there on the sidelines being super complacent with their boring brands. And that's totally cool. Everyone's making a paycheck. They're all happy. But we're going to be aggressive with it. And we're going to just start taking pieces and pieces of their world.
Over the 10 years I've known you, I've seen your company grow. It's been nice to watch you grow. Full transparency, so no one we do digital marketing for pretty much all your clients at this point. And, but when I seen you grow from probably when I met you 10 years ago, probably 10 employees, so you're well over in the 20s now. I mean, you're probably more profitable now. I tell you all the time you have to raise your pricing. I tell you that all the time. I mean, I feel like you should. You say no, but that's me, right? I mean,
we have, but within reason. Yeah.
Can you talk to me about that journey of growing your agency? Because this is not. I tell everyone, I got 100 some employees out there. This isn't the easiest game in town.
No.
What you do, what I do. Can you talk about the journey and the grind? Because it is a grind.
Yeah.
I mean, you're fortunate you have Terry, who's incredible. I have CJ and Bill, incredible. But if you had to be in a day-to-day operation, do you think your company would be growing at the pace it's growing?
Well, I think, to your point, it's culture-driven, right? So a lot of the employees that have come aboard and joined us really like the idea that we get to change the lives of our clients. And the responsibility that we have in that endeavor, we consider to be sacred. So you hire us, our work affects not only your personal life, it affects your employee's life, it affects the ability for you to be able to take a vacation, to grow, all those things. So we look at that work that we do on a daily basis as being really, really important. And a lot of them came from bigger agencies, like they were working on the Verizon account or some shit like that, or working for these big corporations where their daily work, literally, they weren't able to see any impact at all. And you can see, you know how you change the lives of clients. You know what that's like. You know how the team gets energized when you see the numbers and how many more leads you got this guy. That's what it's all about for us. So I love, we keep in touch with our clients. I develop a lot of personal relationships with our clients, and I'll get the texts from them like, dude, last week I got one from a client who had his first $1 million month. And that's amazing, because 2.5 years ago he was a $2.5 million company, so like seeing that, and then just hearing them when they're like, you know what, Dan, like you helped change our life, at this company, and so I just kept on surrounding myself with people like that who shared that vision, who understood the work that we do is critical, is important. We're not just cranking out shit for the sake of cranking out shit, So that's why, like, to a certain extent, as far as scaling and growing, much beyond like what we have, it's very meticulous who we hire and who we choose to bring aboard on that journey. And as you mentioned, like, I'm blessed to have Terry on my team, who runs day to day. Leaves me focused with doing this part that I love, which is working on brands, and just a really amazing team that they just kill it. So from a culture standpoint, I think we've been able to build a really nice environment, and I think everyone shares in the wins too. And I think that that's what's nice about our culture too. It's not like I designed this logo and I did this truck wrap, when we know it's a whole team of people that made that end product, and we all share in that.
And you're similar to me, where if I text you, you text me right back within reason, unless you're but you're very accessible. Here's a true story. So how I meet Dan probably 10 years ago, 8 years, 9 years, whatever it was, probably 10 years ago, meets my old office, comes up. You had people, Alyssa with you, who I love, great person.
Yeah.
And you guys knew nothing really about digital. It was all brand. And you were worried about your site dropping, this and that. And I sat in that meeting with you for what, probably 3 hours?
Yeah, it was a long-ass meeting.
Long meeting. We were just talking about advertising, digital. And we've been friends ever since. Been to lunches, dinners, traveled together. And that relationship formed into us doing a lot of business. We don't do any branding or rebranding here. As you know, we send it all to you.
Yep.
You send all your digital work to us. And it's been a win. But without us both taking that meeting, and we see so many people snub people in this space. That's why I'm saying this. You never know where someone's going to go and grow to. Take the meeting, because some of your best relationships start by you had a problem, you had a concern.
Yeah.
And that's really what that meeting was all about, was just your concern.
Yeah.
And we overcame that concern, and then it evolved into a true friendship, and we're doing things together. Like, what would you say to people about why relationships are so important, and every time you get a chance to spend time with someone, you should? Why relationship? I just gave an example that helped both of our businesses grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that that's what I love about working so closely with these owners, is that I can text them whenever, and I can follow up with them, and I can take that phone call if they've got a question, and then you go to these trade shows, and I think that those are really important, because you get to hang out with them, like, because it's all virtual for 95% of our clients. Like, we probably only have 5% of our clients in New Jersey, and the rest are spread out all over the country. So you go to those, and it's nice to speak at those events, but I really enjoy just meeting them and being face to face with them, and then hearing about what's happened since we've done the work for them. And then I take that and I bring that back to the office, and I tell the people, and we sit in a meeting and I talk about who I spoke to and how grateful they were about what we've done for them. And so you go to those meetings, and I just come back like super energized, because it's like validation for everything that we're working so hard from, and then you see how it's affected all these people's lives. So that FaceTime, like, I think is important. I feel like it's, to a certain extent, almost like a lost art at this point, right? I feel like we're old timers, old school, and everyone wants to just fucking go on Zoom, and that's how they want to do shit. And it's just nice. You can't replicate in person, I think, is what it boils down to.
Here's a question for you. It's a digital marketing show. Why is digital marketing so important for home services? From Google My Business to pay-per-click to remarketing to organic to the maps execute? Because now you're very educated in digital marketing.
Yeah.
Like, I've beaten you with the bat, right? I mean,
so I would say that the part that people fail to, almost take into account when it relates to branding, and how branding how branding is affected, or affects your digital marketing strategy, I should say. So you invest in this brand, right? And you've got it out in the street, you've got it out in the community, and now it starts becoming ingrained in people's minds. So if you can have clients typing in, or customers typing in a client's name versus heating repair Philadelphia, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for them to show up for a branded keyword
100%
than it is for an unbranded keyword.
Yes.
So that's obviously painfully obvious, but I think that that's the part people miss, is like, I don't understand why I need to invest so much in a brand and have a really kick-ass truck wrap. And it's like, well, so that when people are ready for service, they actually remember your name and don't rely on Google to deliver the results of a generic search term.
But not everyone's going to do that. Still, 91% of all searches are not branded searches in Google. So,
but why? But why is that?
I know, but it's not why is that. Here's the fact, though, of where I'm going to give you a plug, and this is where you guys got to think and say, okay, you're the brand man, that's great, but everyone's not going to listen. You can meet the hottest girl out, the hottest girl you ever met Friday night at 1 in the morning, and somehow you forgot her name by 2 o'clock, and it's the most beautiful woman you ever met. Like, that happens. You ain't right?
It happens, yeah.
So you have the best brand in the world, but this is what will happen. And this is where assisted conversions comes in. I believe in branding so much. Obviously, I believe in branding. Is you type in HVAC company or heating company near me, boom, oh, yeah, I remember that name.
Exactly.
I remember that name. And that's an assisted conversion where if you don't have that great brand equity, now you're just competing with the other 3 people.
Right.
And that's where I call it the trust value assisted conversion. If I can have people typing in digital national SEO firm, home service SEO firms, all those type of words, and they see one SEO and they heard of one SEO, it's a good business chance they're going to convert higher on our site.
100%. But to your point earlier, I think that that's such an interesting stat about the fact that I think it's 85% of consumers when they are searching for a home service contractor do not know the name of a contractor, right? So that's to me the part that screams opportunity.
100%.
Because if I can get them to remember your name, then I'm already doing better than 85% of my competitors because they already know my name.
I believe that's going to happen anyway if you use your services. Makes sense. So that's it. But that's only going to take you so far. You still have to get that pie. If you're going to grow, you know, you own a company out in Vegas right now. You're bidding on non-branded key terms,
of course,
because if not, you're out of business.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, not that you're out of business, but you're not going to grow.
Right.
There has to be a balance with your marketing, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I said to everyone, like, you know, when I'm communicating with people, it kind of we were talking about P&Ls earlier. Another thing everyone should know that owns a business. We're talking about people's nets and what the net should be, and it's hard when you're going from 2 million to 15 to be at a 20% net. Have people done it? Yes.
Yeah.
But I believe you're probably going to be at 10% more likely.
Right.
That's just me, but the point I'm making is when you're coming up with all these things for marketing, brand obviously is a big piece of it, but you have to have a non-branded component to it and hope that you built such a good brand they remember your brand.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's what you got to hope for.
And to my point earlier about driving here, like, so I'm driving here, I saw maybe a dozen HVAC truck wraps on the way up here. Probably 10 of them were red and blue, and probably 8 of them used red and blue arrows going around in a fucking circle. Right?
The American-based colors, that's why. But I get it.
But like, so why would I remember any one of them distinctly if they all look the same, right? So even when we were talking about the logos that we were working on for you for Cherry, right? You could go on Google and you could Google roofing company logos, right? And you're gonna get a sea of fucking rooftops and shit that looks all the same. And what did I say? I said, well, I don't want to look like what everyone else is doing. You have a great name, Cherry, immediately evokes a visual. Now I need to connect the visual with the line of business and use colors that aren't
We're going to show you the logo here today. We're going to show. Can I show it? Can I show it?
Yeah.
We're going to put up the logo here today.
So like that's the whole part about getting sticky in their minds so that when they go to that search and then they scrolling through, maybe they remember seeing that name. Oh, yeah. I saw that van. That was pretty cool. That was a little bit different than what everybody else was doing. Let me click on that website. And they come in. The colors are different. The voice is different. All those things. That's all what factors into having her actually fill out that contact form.
100%.
Make that phone call.
It's an assistant. I'm a big believer in that. Here's a question for you. You deal with a lot of business owners like I do. And even though you're doing brand and wraps, I get into those conversations. You get put into digital marketing. You get into budget conversations. People still ask about television, I'm sure, to you, and radio and, you know, door knocking. Tell me some of the best things you've seen. Branding, obviously, one of them. What other services have you seen? Is it majority of people are growing by digital marketing first? Is it television first? Door knocking? Can you kind of go us through how you see the lead generation happening across home service-based businesses?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of lead gen, obviously, I would say the number one is going to be online and digital. The other thing that I think we see is people still actually invest in collateral. They invest in direct mail. They invest in billboards. So those are going to be part of the marketing mix, just not given as much of a percentage of the spend as the digital is going to get. So the biggest yields you typically see are going to be in that world. But we've also seen instances, for example, where we had a client with 18 trucks that generated $1 million in revenue. From just specifically, just from the wraps.
I believe that.
So 18 trucks divided by $1 million, and what did you spend to get, even if you figure the trucks wraps last 5 years, it was like less than $20,000 a year he spent to get $1 million in revenue. Like, what other kind of ROI would you ever get from that? So that's obviously part of it, but digital is obviously going to be the number one source.
The worst wrap you could have is a white van wrap.
Yeah. I call that the white van syndrome.
I mean, like, what are those people thinking? Dan, on the final roar, right? My question to you is, a lot of home service-based people are watching this, and a lot of people are afraid to go through a rebrand. They don't know what they don't know. They're afraid to change their name. Mm-hmm. Talk to us and tell them why they should be okay with it. I saw you do it with KickCharge. It was the best thing I ever thought you did personally. Yeah. Can you talk to them and walk them through that process of what it's going to look like and why they should lower their guard a little bit?
Well, again, if it's not working in their favor, if they're having to spend more money because of it. So if you can get over the idea that, well, I've been in business for this many years and it's working, so why would I ever change it, right? And it's like, well, it's working in spite of it, not because of it. So if you can change your mindset about what actually is possible with a better brand, what would happen to your company with a better brand? Would you be able to retain talent? Would you be able to increase your average tickets? Would you have a better culture? All those things are the reasons why you decide I'm either going to stay the course or I'm going to change course. The complacent owners, it's so easy to say I'm just going to stay the course, right? Oh, well, it's working. I don't think I should change, because they can't see beyond what that change might look like. So name changes is not something that we throw around as an arbitrary thing. There's a lot of criteria that goes involved in deciding whether a name change makes sense. But I will say this, we have probably named or renamed maybe 40 or so home service companies at this point. We have never seen a net decrease in revenue subsequent to a name change. I don't think we've ever seen a net decrease in revenue subsequent to a rebrand either, keeping the existing name. Like, that's never happened. But I know what's on the other side of the equation because I've done it so often. I understand why it's scary for you, but these are the things that are affecting the amount of money you need to spend and your ability to, again, recruit and culture and all these other aspects of things. So you either, you can stay doing what you want to do, like that's totally cool. But you might want to think about if it's really working. And I think that the other thing is guys just don't know that it's not working, right? Like I didn't know half the shit that was wrong on my website till you looked at it and you said, no, Dan, you got too much of this. It's too much, trimmed. Like, I didn't know. Like, I thought it was working all right. But you don't know what you don't know, right? So I think that's the part of it too, is guys think that what they have is actually good when it's really not, and they're not educated. So that's why I love the book, because I think the book is going to answer a lot of those questions. I think if you read the book, you'll really understand how this is all supposed to function. And then you'll be able to almost do a self-assessment. Like, wait, does my brand really do this? Does my brand really say that? Oh, I didn't even think about that. So I think it's going to be something that guys can look at and be introspective. And if you're really open to, that idea, it's going to make sense. If you think what you're doing is perfect, you don't ever need to change, then it's not going to probably be the right book for you. Yeah. But I think that's, again, what separates the guys that are doing really well with the guys that are, on a nice, safe trajectory. And there's nothing wrong with a safe trajectory if you don't want to really. It takes work to rebrand. It's not like, it takes work. And
don't gotta tell me.
And so I get that too. That it's oh shit, I gotta redo my trucks. I gotta change stuff on my uniforms, and I gotta get new business cards. And it sounds like it's gonna be such a huge hassle. But I'm telling you, once you get through the other side of it, you're gonna be like, oh shit, this is something I should have done years ago. So I've never had someone go through the process and be like, man, I'm so pissed that we did this. It's always like, oh man, we should have done this so long ago. Like, it's never a question afterwards.
I'm going to tell you right now, get the book, brand it, not bland it. You own a business. Do yourself a favor, read it. I stayed up last night to about 3 a.m. reading the book. One of the best books I read about branding in my lifetime.
Yeah, the book's going to be available for orders on Amazon on September 1st.
Everyone, Dan Antonelli, the brand man, get the book ASAP. Do yourself a favor. I've seen Dan, just like myself, take companies and grow them and grow them. And the one thing I'm going to tell you about Dan, his company, good man of moral code, ethics, and he's proven, right? And this is why I say to people this all the time. It's not to plug your company, Dan. You have to go with people that have been proven and did it time. And not everything's a success always. Not everything's the easiest thing. But if the overall body of work has been amazing, most likely you're going to have amazing results too. Kudos to you for all your success. Thank you for being here, Dan. You are the man. I appreciate our friendship, our business, everything we've done together. And it's been a joy to watch you grow over the years. It really has been.
Thanks, brother. So glad to be here. And this is just amazing also what you've built here. And it's always an inspiration for me to see the stuff that you've done. So thank you for that as well over the years.